following program is sponsored in part by To a Woman's Heart. The thoughts and views expressed by the following production don't necessarily reflect those of the network or any sponsors. Rainbow Room Publishing Live, starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Going to read today is called Transitions, and just briefly, the way this came about was actually it was an experimental piece. I was trying to refine my writer's process, which is something that in interviews people constantly ask me about. What's your writer's process? What's your writer's process? And so I was trying to write something every single day, and this kind of stream of thought piece started emerging throughout the month of January last year, actually. So just pre-pandemic writing. This is what it became. So with no further ado, transitions. There was a spot of blood on the floor that was bothering her. She'd sat in the reclining chair by the wall-to-wall window and stared at it, dried and cracking, as she hugged the blanket with the paltry thread count to her chin in a feeble attempt to keep her body heat close. Behind her, through the window, the sky was aglow with the artificial light coming from every right angle that made up the massive complex of the university hospital where she held post. Defibrillators, codes, rib-cracking compressions in the horror film that had become her life. To think that the events of just a few days before didn't foretell this moment would be possible, that the soothing calm of a storm past would envelop her. Joyce now had the privilege to have little in life to bother her at the moment, but a slight chill and an irksome spot of blood that she would neither clean up herself nor call in housekeeping or a nurse to do. Her aunt, the complete apple of her eye, lay sleeping angelically in the bed next to the spot, oblivious to all but what Joyce hoped were sweet dreams. No longer was she intubated, and during her most recent waking hours, she had no recollection of the death and resuscitation her niece had witnessed that was, in fact, her very own. It was 2 a.m., the witching hour, and from the 8th floor of the hospital, the sounds of the city were hauntingly slight. Joyce heard an ambulance cry in the distance, and she craned her neck, then swiveled her whole body in the chair to see it. Fixated, she watched it speed down Cottage Grove Avenue and longed to know that the person inside was going to make it. Days ago, she'd had the same fervent wish, that the person inside the racing ambulance would make it, knowing that person was her aunt. Chasing ambulances was much different from staring at them from a bird's eye view, Joyce thought. Considering that to chase them meant the emergency had hit far too close to home, she definitely preferred to stare. Her sudden gasp had started deep in her belly and could have sucked all the air out of the room. Next, she cupped her hand over her mouth with the force of a slap, unable to believe her eyes, but subconsciously realizing that waking the sleeping patient wouldn't make this moment any better. The ambulance, which was just about to turn the corner and head for the ER, had swerved to avoid a jaywalker and plowed straight into a pole. Cleo was dog-ass tired. It was hard enough being homeless, let alone in the wintertime in Chicago. Between the too thin jacket, the hole in his left shoe, and the heroin coursing through his veins that had long ceased to offer escape, but now just fought off sickness, he was fucked up. Living day by day was a distant dream. Cleo was living moment to moment, and as he reached in his pocket, he anticipated with almost childlike delirium the escape the next few moments would hold. He shuffled along, stumbling in his haze, but never falling, and dug deeper in his pocket, searching for his treasure. Damn, not the left pocket. That one was nothing but ripped cotton. He felt himself scratch his leg with filthy nails, and his hand passed through the shredded lining. That felt good. He scratched again, harder this time, trying to satisfy an itch that never quite went away. At this point, He wasn't sure anymore if it was the chemical cocktail that served as his blood that made him itch insatiably from the inside, or the near gelatinous coating of grime that had glazed his skin like honey on a ham. He hadn't been able to bathe now in 12 days. Not since his...
Available now, from a Black perspective, The Blood. Words dance, on the page and off. They tap and tumble, they slide and glide. They bop and break, they pop and lock. That's the kind of visual joy I experience reading From a Black Perspective, The Blood. A.D.S. Pierce has assembled an eclectic, inventive posse of wordsmiths for a collection that may be slender in volume but bountiful in pleasure. From the foreword written by James Earl Hardy, New York Times and Amazon best-selling author of the Evil Blues series. From a Black Perspective, The Blood, available now from any of our featured authors.